Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. How are you all doing this evening? I'm just going to reframe Brian here a little bit. Give me a second. Bring you down. Let's see a little bit more of your head there. That's perfect. Brian, how are you doing?
Very good, very good.
I'm glad to hear that. It seems as if we are quite literally night and day in comparison, and I think it's probably an apt analogy. I should warn everybody that I last had actual caffeine this morning at 7 a.m. and then my doctor said, no more caffeine for you. So now I'm drinking cocoa. I don't know if it has the same effect. So if a certain tabaxi dies in a horribly mutilated way, it's not my fault at all, I should say. But anyway, so there we go. Right, let's get on with the show. Why have we got my desktop there? That's awful. Let's open up something that's exciting anyway, and that would be the map of Aetherios. And there it is there. Okay, so we've got a lot to get through tonight. A lot of exciting things, possibly not. When last we left our intrepid hero, he had just reconnected with Alexei, his trusty companion, and made a new friend in the name of his horse. And,
Yes.
yes, you were heading off towards the source of the Hytos River, which was hopefully going to give you a ferry down to the city of Nexi, where supposedly Brother Zill might have headed with his elvish companions. And so there we are. I see in chat lots of people have joined us. Cocoa puts you to sleep. Well, I don't know, if you drink several liters of this stuff, I think there's something else that keeps you awake. But thanks for the heads up. And then we have someone joining us. It's 4 a.m. tuning into work. You are my caffeine. Well, Mr. Sinister, we're going to try and keep you awake. And that's where we start. So into the world we go. The great open plains stretch out before you in all directions as your party slowly makes its way towards the territories that you hope will contain the ferry. It is after about an hour of moving across this great expanse where you have seen nothing except for large herds of grazing thundars, which are particularly large, particularly shaggy ox-like creatures, except they have 3 horns, one on either side of the head, and then a forward prow-like horn. They're herbivores and generally don't seem to hurt anybody. Every now and again, way off in the distance, you spot perhaps a flock of griffin as they fly from Pythios all the way north to Naposti, but they are way, way off in the distance, so far as to only be seen because they are so large themselves. However, at the end of that rather comfortable journey, you have arrived at the source, you think, of the Ganamos River, which is the first river that you have to cross. Now, the Ganamos River is fairly small at this particular point, and you can see, not far from you, maybe half a mile or so, it looks as if there's a fairly large bridge which crosses the Ganamos at this particular point, and 2 colossal statues stand legs spread over this bridge, forming the base arches upon which the bridge is built. You can see several individuals are moving around at the base of that particular bridge, but other than that, just the broad river itself. Alexei looks to you. Are we going to cross at the bridge, or do you want to try and ford across?
Yes, I was hoping to look for a ferry to go down the river, but perhaps we have to cross at the bridge first.
Well, maybe those men might know. It's difficult to tell from this distance what they are. Give me a perception check, if you please.
Okay. 17.
looking at them, you realize that perhaps they have fairly large and long tails sticking out of the back of them, and their gait, the way they walk, seems to be quite sluggish, not as a human might move, or even an elf for that matter. They look quite heavy set, as a matter of fact, and now that you're glaring at them, even from this distance, on those tails, every now and again you get a glint of bright red. Could be lizard folk, but you're not sure.
Kinvar, my good friend, do you smell anything that we should be wary of?
His great black horsey nostrils flare as he takes in the wind, looks back at you. It does smell strange, I'll give you that. But I'm not a bloodhound, so I couldn't say more. Definitely smells like sort of a wet handbag.
Okay. Well then, let us proceed slowly, with caution, so as not to alarm these creatures before us.
Do you want me to go ahead, Master, and I might speak with them on your behalf?
Yes, that is a good idea.
Oh, okay, good ideas. Right. He squares himself up in his saddle and urges his horse ahead. And how far ahead are you going to let him get from you? It's mid-afternoon.
Not more than 30 feet. Still keep a fairly safe distance just in case something happens.
All right. As he gets closer and closer to the bridge, I'll show you that bridge in a moment, but he seems to pause as one of the figures turns to him, and unfortunately from this distance you actually can't hear what they're saying, as the wind seems to have picked up in this general vicinity. I'm just going to share this here quickly, and seems to be chatting for a moment. I'm going to show you where he is right now. And from here you realize that the bridge is actually, it's huge, as bridges go, and certainly very unusual for it to have been built this far away from civilization. It really is, it is massive. We'll put you and Kinvar at the back of the map as I reveal it to you. But yes, this is what you let me just do this. This is what you are seeing, this large statue standing directly over the river, and then standing around him, slowly approaching with, you hope it's a grin? You're not entirely sure, but slowly approaching you is this very large reptilian-like creature, and it seems to be eyeing you out, very much trying to decide exactly who you are or what you are, and certainly what Alexei is as well. And when they see your large horse, they seem to become very interested. And so there are 4 of them that are standing there. They are indeed reptilian beasts of some kind. You think they're actually not lizard folk. You think they're actually crocodilians, which are slightly larger than the regular lizard folk. And they are, like I said, slowly approaching Alexei. Now you can start to hear him. This is not the correct distance, by the way. You're not 20 feet away. You're just slightly off the map. But you can see now Alexei is busy chatting to them desperately, and they seem to be making some gestures towards you or the horse. You're not entirely sure. Do you intercede or do you wait?
So yeah, you said Alexei looks fairly desperate.
Yeah, but that's pretty much Alexei's standard state, though, too. Let's be honest.
Oh, okay, that's true. Yeah, he's made his introductions. I'll make my way forward.
Okay, you slowly urge the Brindisian on, and as you start riding forward, the tone changes. I'm putting Kinvar next to you. I know you should be riding on top of him, but I'm putting him next to you. I should actually just change the size of his. Oopsie, he's not that big. There we are. He is a big warhorse. Counts as large. So yes, these folk, as you start approaching, you can see them backing up ever so slightly, looking at you. Alexei turns and he says, I think you should probably talk to them, sir. Yes, you should probably talk to them.
You see, what have you told them so far?
Just that we're on our way to the next river and are looking for a ferry passage. And then they started asking questions. He starts backing up slowly towards you. They started asking questions about you and about your horse, and I told them that I didn't know how you got him, and then you arrived, sir.
Okay. All right. Make my way forward and see what they are about.
As you are you riding forward on Kinvar, or are you going to dismount?
Actually, if I'll stay mounted. Stay mounted for now.
Okay. So you urge Kinvar forward. How close are you going to go to them? Are you going to go much closer than that? Sort of 10, 15 feet away?
Yeah, enough to hear them clearly is good enough.
All right. They all sort of back up, forming a line underneath the statue. And one of them steps forward and hisses, "How come you to this place, Harbinger?"
We have traveled the road on our way to the ferry. Is that your meaning? Is that what you are asking?
You are not the Harbinger?
I do not know this Harbinger that you speak of.
They back up a little bit, and there's a lot of conferring going on between them. They're whispering in low... What am I doing? They're whispering in low guttural tones as they talk to one another. Are you going to try and eavesdrop?
Yeah.
Okay. You can give me either a stealth check or a perception check as you try and work out what they're saying to each other in their little huddle. They do seem quite badly wounded now that you are looking at them.
Do a stealth check. That'll be a 15.
You surreptitiously lean forward and listen in on their conversation, and it ranges between them talking about the fact that it was foretold that the darkness would arrive and would be born on darkness as well, and that it would be known unto the land as the Harbinger, for with it death did follow. And they are not entirely sure if you are the Harbinger and it's just a test, if they should flee in terror, or if they should ask for assistance. So they seem to be sort of vacillating between those four spaces.
Okay. Is there something that I could help you with? You seem quite confused. I'm happy to. I'm not looking for trouble. I'm merely passing through.
The one that seems to be designated the leader steps forward, wringing its hands together. Now, these are 7-foot tall lizard folk covered in heavy red scales down the backs of their spines. You can see they've got bone bits and pieces strung around on various sinews and cords, and all of them have some form of weapon made from a crude type of stone strapped to their side, whether it's an axe or a mace or a sword, doesn't really matter. Anyway, it steps forward and, wringing its hands, it says, "The builders of this bridge, they entrusted its safety to our care. We have fulfilled this duty for many, many, many years, and eagerly await the promised rewards for our diligence. However, recently a creature of considerable danger has taken residence in the river beyond," and he points to just to the other side of the bridge. "It is making our efforts difficult. We have tried to slay it already, but unfortunately we have failed on numerous occasions. There were originally 12 of us. Now we are the 4 that remain. If you are the Harbinger, then death should follow in your wake. We would be indebted if you were to dispatch this beast for us. We would offer you what meager resources we have as recompense. Alternatively, if you wish to simply travel upon your way, we would understand."
I see. Tell me more of this creature. What does it look like? What is its size?
It is difficult to explain. We believe it is known locally as the Yunja, a serpent-like monstrosity of considerable power. It strikes at night, feeding on those that would live in or near the river, such as ourselves. We have little hope of defeating it on our own. The other one steps forward, an elderly-looking one, and says, "It is afraid of fire, if that is of any use to you. We lack the fire, and so we cannot defeat it."
I see. Well, perhaps that is something that I could do. I do have somewhat of a fire comes from my god that could possibly be useful in dealing with such a creature.
"You are the Harbinger," says the elderly one.
That I do not know. It is not my intention to cause death. I am a follower of life, but death is a part of life. It is a part of the cycle.
"Spoken so wisely, Harbinger," says the first. "You cannot breathe underwater, correct? Your species I am unfamiliar with."
That is correct. I cannot breathe under the water. Must this creature be found under the water?
The third one, which is the most wounded, sort of hobbles forward.
It lives in the waters. It seldom surfaces except to feed. We believe we know of where its cave might be, but it is below.
So I would have to go through the water to get to this cave, you're saying?
This horse doesn't swim.
No worries, Kinbar. I would not think of taking you there. I'm just trying to gather this location.
There is a small opportunity for us if you are nervous about being under the water. There is a temple nearby, one which is long since forgotten, but which we believe, with proper sacrifice or care, will grant the ability for those to breathe underwater, says the first.
This is very interesting.
Would we sacrifice, sir?
I do not. Well, we will cross that bridge when we get to it.
One of the lizard folk seems to laugh at that joke.
But no, not to fear, Alexei. I will not sacrifice my companions.
As we will not sacrifice ourselves either. Perhaps we should journey to this temple. It is not far.
Okay, please lead the way.
And in truth, it really isn't far. It is quite literally just off of the side of the road, and you realize as you are making your way down towards this old ruined temple that if you'd been looking for it, you probably would have been able to see it from the road. It is quite overgrown, though. And give me a religion check.
Okay. Ooh. Five.
Yeah, which circle, which cult, you haven't got a clue. You're not entirely sure. The statue appears to be, in this particular case, it's obviously Etheriosian in its origin. It appears to be a woman holding a man with a sword in his hand. So what that signifies, you're not entirely sure. We have seen the engineers when they were building this. They prayed to the statue and then were able to walk and work beneath the surface without hindrance. Master?
I will. Yes, Alexei.
I think it might actually be a dedication to the... He whispers to you, the ancient gods, the ones before.
I see.
I've only ever read one book about it, though, when I was supposed to be studying.
Tell me more. What have you read?
Just that there were, before the circles, individuals who were supposed to be great gods. They were abandoned when their power was lost, and the circles were discovered as the ultimate form of true divine connectivity and manifestation, I guess. But that was thousands of years ago. If this is truly a bridge built by them, I don't think anyone's coming back to save these people or pay them their protection fee, he whispers.
Well, if I can help them, I will try. I will get off of Kinva, dismount before going into the temple.
All right. He trots off to go and chew on some bulrushes. You head into the temple?
Yeah, I'm going to walk up to the statue and see if if there's any writing or anything telling me about.
Give me a wisdom saving throw, please, as you approach the statue.
Wisdom is definitely my weakness. 3.
As you approach the statue, it feels like, well, the afternoon weather was fairly calm and neutral afternoon. But as you're getting closer to it, it does feel like there are clouds gathering on the horizon, and a rather mean wind picks up and ruffles through your fur. And the closer you get to it, the more you are convinced it is going to be a thunderstorm of significant note. Quite a powerful one, for that matter. Until eventually you are standing directly in front of the statue, you notice that the statues seem to be looking directly at you, their heads slowly turning with this very grating stone-on-stone slab moving sort of sound. There is a smell of electricity and definitely ancient space, if that makes sense. What do you do?
Greetings, ancient ones. My name is Raj. I do not mean to trespass where I do not belong, but I have come in seek of your help.
The man looks down at you, and his eyes, which have no pupils, they're stone, change to a very dark blue, and this voice, which seems to be on the wind but also inside your chest, this voice says, "What would you do here?"
These creatures who have been charged to defend this bridge have lost many of their kind to a snake-like creature. I wish to help them to defeat this creature. They have told me you grant the ability to breathe under the water. May I be worthy of such a blessing?
The female statue, who's holding her husband, you assume, looks at you, seems to look out of the temple, which, when you look behind you, you can no longer see anything out there. It's just this grey, swirling vortex of storm clouds and leaves and mist. She looks back. The Zash? You mean to say the Zash need help? Well, that's a laugh. I don't think we should help them, husband. He looks back at you. Why would you help the slave race?
They have been greatly injured and lost many of their kind.
They will make more. It is the nature of slaves.
I see. But there is this snake-like creature. I fear it will also harm other travelers on this road across this bridge, and I would like to prevent that.
Will it harm our bridge? Says the female.
It very well could, yes.
I knew we shouldn't have trusted the slaves to look after that bridge. Far too important. Well, give the man what he wants, and make sure that you destroy it. If you don't, I shall place a curse upon you and your family to the 1000th generation, you little furry thing. Now go and fix our bridge.
Very well, very well. It shall be my honor to do so.
The man looks down at you. I am unfamiliar with your kind. Are you new slaves?
No, we are not slaves. I come from a faraway land. We call ourselves Tabaxi.
It is a foreign tongue. You are an invader, yet you would protect our bridge. Why?
I am but a traveler, but I do, believing in the ways of life, I do like to help people to keep their lives.
He probably wants payment. That's what they all want. They come to our lands and they want payment. Well, defeat the creature and we will give you payment. Is that satisfactory?
More than satisfactory, yes. I am not looking for money, so to speak. I am just looking to be helpful.
If you are truly the noble creature that you say you are, then receive our blessing, and be sure that it will last until the rising of the next sun, whereupon, if you have not defeated the creature, my wife's curse will take effect. Defeat this creature and return to us, and we will ensure that you are properly rewarded.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. It shall be my honor to perform this deed for you.
He lifts his stone sword and points it directly at your head, and this very faint magic seems to pool along the blade, and with this soft blue light, it arcs out towards you with these tendrils that almost look like water in slow motion, until eventually it splashes against the side of your cheek and your face. It's not wet, thankfully, but it does splash against the side of your fur, and yeah, life seems to be a little bit better. The clouds start to vanish, the thunder disappears, and the statues seem to be once again unmoving and in their original position. Are you all right, sir? Says Alexei from behind a broken pillar.
I walk back out. Yes, I believe I have found the blessing that I was looking for. Now, if you would please show me where the entrance to this creature's lair is.
We have not seen such an incident in a long time. You truly are blessed by the gods, says the one who's been speaking to you quite often. They walk you along the coastline of the river line, I suppose you would call it. And as they get back to the original bridge, they then continue on a little bit to quite a dense area of foliage. And it's here that Kinvar has started to eat the various bits and pieces, but it doesn't look to you any different from any other part of the river. Two of the reptilian folk have stayed behind. They've actually gone back onto the bridge, ostensibly to bleed out quietly because they were quite badly wounded. It is here we believe the serpent to dwell, in these floating vegetative spaces.
I see. Well,
I will come with you. I can hold my breath for a really long time. I'm quite a good swimmer.
no, Alexei. I would like you to stay here and look after your horse and my friend Kinvar. Point two.
I don't need any little boy to look after me, says a voice from the olive tree that's busy being munched upon. If you're sure, sir.
Yes, yes. I think in this situation, I, I I do not know how long I will have to hold my breath. So, uh, and I have been blessed with, I believe, the ability to breathe under the water where you have not. So I will not risk your life in this.
Perhaps we should have a signal, sir, in case you get into trouble. I could jump into the water and at best perhaps act as a distraction. Perhaps.
That, all right. I do not know what signal I could get from under the water, but let
We
me.
have something that may be of use.
Yes,
He
please.
pulls from his pocket what looks to be a very, very flat and rather wrinkled frog. But on closer inspection, you see it's actually been stitched around the sides. We use these to mark areas on the bridge that need repair. Simply placed to the lips, and he blows up the frog into the sort of balloon type thing, and release it. It will float to the surface, marking your position.
All right. There we go. Alexei, if you see the floating frog, then that would be my signal.
Right. Yes. I'll go and find a stick in the meantime, since I don't have any weaponry.
Yes, that would be another reason why I think you should stay behind.
He starts pulling on branches and, come on, you, as he's fighting. Do you wish us to accompany you?
I would appreciate your guidance here, as I know that you will be more suited to the water. But please keep a safe distance. You are already quite injured. I would not wish you to meet your end while I am trying to prevent you from doing so.
That is very kind of you. I shall stay at a safe distance, though I should warn you my wounds might attract the beast.
Actually, I think that will come to our advantage, as we wish to lure him out.
Then I suggest we enter by diving from the center of the bridge. It is the deepest part and will allow us the most opportunity to see our surroundings.
Very well.
He leads you to the center of the bridge whilst everybody else is outside mucking about with finding weaponry. Do you jump first, or shall I?
Lead the way, please.
He pulls from his belt a rather crude looking, you think it's like a short harpoon. It doesn't have a very long shaft, and it's got a very, very, very solid amount of spikes at the front. And then he leaps into the water. There's a splash, and then he's gone.
I quickly follow behind him.
All right. You also leap into the water, and that takes us down below. And let me just see where we are. I think I have to activate the map. Yes. Wait, where are we? We are. It's very dark under the water. Very dark. Very dark under the water, as a matter of fact. Let's just see what level we're on. Okay, it doesn't want to show us the levels. That's all right. So yes, you land in the cold, icy water, and it is quite miserable down here as the water washes over you and around you. It's difficult to see. Do you take a breath?
Yes, test out this enchantment.
All right. Yeah, you take a great big lungful of water, and to your delight, you realize that, yes, you can, in actual fact, breathe underwater. And it's not a completely unpleasant experience, although it is definitely an unusual one, as it's like breathing heavy air, basically. But yes, you find yourself, thankfully, now under the river. Small fish dart and swim around the area that you're in. I will show that to you now. And a school of curious fish come along, looking tentative at first, and then they swim past you. Great big shoal of fish. But yes, this is what you can see, a muddy bottom and very little else. Then the lizard folk swims next to you and gestures that you should follow.
Okay. I keep following him.
All right. I need you to please give me a perception check with disadvantage.
Ooh.
Actually, you know what I might do, just to create a bit more mood? Give me a second here.
Oh. Nice. A 19 and a 20. So that would be it. With a disadvantage at 21.
With disadvantage at 21, I like it. You realize that the water, it is fairly murky, but slowly you're starting to get used to it, and that gives you a slightly bigger option in terms of what you can see going on. There's, at the very edge of your vision, you can start to see the bank of the river slowly making its way out until eventually you have got all the way to definitely the bank of the river. And it's quite a steep drop off, as a matter of fact. There's some heavy foliage around. But other than that, you can see at the very tip of your range a cave-like entrance in the side of the mud. So I'm just going to move you down a little bit, and you can see at the bottom there a cave-like entrance. The reptile who's floating around you points directly at that, and then starts to float around. You can see ever so subtly there is a small amount of blood slowly seeping out of this poor guy as he is floating around. Other than that, there doesn't seem to be any movement. No fish at all.
So I see an entrance to a cave? Or?
Yeah. It's a small entrance to... It looks like a cave. It looks like it's been burrowed into the mud face itself.
Okay. I will motion for him to go back, and I will make my way in.
All right. As he starts swimming back... As he starts swimming back, leaving his little blood trail, out of this hole appears this tremendously large creature. I will show you the token right now. It's so big, it starts to slither out of this mega hole, if you like, and it just keeps going and going and going and going and going, like some kind of eel, perhaps you suspect it might be. But yes, it just keeps moving outwards, following directly behind poor old the lizard folk, for lack of a better word. But yes, just this really long thing, and very curiously coloured as well. It's got a sort of a purplish tint to its flesh, but just to give you an idea, I will plop it into the space. But this is the size of it as it slithers past you. This massive, massive serpent just sliding past directly after the lizard folk. Let's roll initiative, and then you're going to tell me what you do.
All right.
Oh, dear. Well, I see you're 21 and raise you a natural 20.
I rolled a natural 22.
What? That's nuts. Okay, I like it. Your dexterity is higher than its dexterity, so you are definitely going first. What are you doing?
Okay. All right, we're going to test this magic underwater. They said it was susceptible to flames, so let's start out with Sacred Flame and see what it does. Dexterity 13 saving throw. Otherwise, 8 points.
It fails.
Fails.
Oh, yeah.
So a whopping 3 points of damage.
3 points of damage. So as you cast the spell, you notice swirling around the magic is that faint blue watery power or glow that was emanating from the statue, and it seems to create this protection around your magic, which allows it to sail out. It slams into the side of this creature. Well, it sort of splashes against the side of this creature and does not seem to stop it in its forward movement at all. You do have a movement, however. You can do something else if you want to.
Okay. Can I get on its back? Can I?
Sure, give me an acrobatics check as you try and mount this beast of darkness.
Dirty 20.
Absolutely. You climb onto this thing's back. It doesn't seem to notice you as it's busy swimming out. Perhaps it thinks you are some branch or weed that it's pushing through on its way after its prey. You can see from where you are, and I'm just going to put you ahead, that it is swimming after this lizard folk who is desperately trying to get away. But you're not sure it's going to happen. It then surges forward, dragging you with it, and it makes an attack against this lizard folk. It opens up this massive mouth, and as its mouth opens, you realize its bottom jaw actually opens in half as well. So not only does it open downwards, but it opens sideways to create this three-pronged maw, which it desperately tries to... Oh, it misses. As it strikes at this lizard folk, he rolls on his side and seems to try and dodge away from the attack. I'm just going to reframe here. He rolls away. The creature then continues to move around him, almost encircling him with its long body. I'm just going to put you, let's say, there. As it's slowly circling around this poor lizard folk who seems to be in a very panicked state, as one might be if one was about to be eaten by a gigantic snake-like creature. He strikes out with his spear, completely misses, it bounces off of the thing's scales, and then frantically starts swimming. Let me just see which direction he's starting to swim in. Oh yes, frantically starts swimming. He swims underneath it and barrels out the bottom end. Desperately trying to get back to where you think the bridge is above you. But because the creature has slid out into the river now, it's disturbed all of the water around you. And unfortunately, that is obscuring your view quite badly. I'm going to change your view now to sort of a muddy brown as this serpent is swimming around, dislodging all of this stuff. Back to top of the round, and it's you.
Okay. From his back, take out the weapon that the orc woman gave me from before.
Aha.
And plunge it into this thing's back and see what that does.
You have advantage, sir.
Okay. 17.
Definitely a hit. You bury this dagger into the creature's side.
6 points of damage.
6 points of damage. Okay, so what I want you to do, if you please, is to give me a Constitution saving throw.
Okay.
This tooth that this thing
14.
was carved out of. Beg your pardon?
14.
14. All right. You plunge this dagger into the creature, and you dealt how much damage?
6 points of damage.
6 points of damage. All right, so that does that. You regain 3 hit points. Not that you've lost any, but you feel this. It's as you're stabbing it, you feel the dagger getting warm. Your hands warming up, as if it was trying to restore you in some shape or form. The beast is now definitely aware that you are on its back, and it changes tactic completely. It starts to wrap around and roil on itself to try and get you off. So this is effectively a grappling situation. So you're going to need to give me an athletics or an acrobatics check to stay on its back.
Okay. Acrobatics is a better one for me. 23.
Nice. You are on fire tonight. It counts when there's snakes around, I see. All right. So as it's trying to coil around you, you basically scrabbling around it, using its big scales as leverage to move around. And it does this for quite some time until eventually it seems to think perhaps you've been dislodged, or it gives up. You're not entirely sure of its motivation. What you do see, though, is that now its turn is over, the lizard folk suddenly surges back in again with his little bone harpoon thing and jabs at it. But you can see that probably the reason why these folk failed in the first place is that these stone weapons of theirs might be good against thin skin, but against the heavily scaled hide of this beast, it does absolutely nothing. It sort of bounces off it without any effect. Back to you.
All right. Continue to stab at it with my short sword.
Make your attack. You still have advantage as you're riding it.
13.
13, you bash at it, but you don't break the skin.
Okay.
You doing anything else?
No, just hold on for my next chance.
All right.
To stab.
It realizes that you're still there. It felt the bump. And so now what it does is it surges forward and rolls up against the side of the riverbank, against the sort of the rocky wall, trying to scrape you off, if you will. And I need you to give me a perception check, if you please.
Okay. 13.
This thing seems pretty smart, actually, as it's scraping you along the side. You have two choices. Either you can hold on and take bludgeoning damage from it impacting you against the side of the river, because it's rotating itself quite well to kind of grind you off. Or, so either you hold on or you let go. If you let go, obviously, then you've let go for next round.
Since we're by the shore now, I'm actually going to let go and try and get up on land. So
All right.
that I can make use my Witch Bolt as a ranged attack.
Before you make your final decision, you are about 20 foot below the water's surface, so it will take you a round to swim to the surface.
Okay.
Just so that you're aware. You still want to let go and try and get to the surface?
Yeah, since
right.
I'm next to this. Yeah.
Absolutely. So it continues to grind its way along the side of the cliff face. You let go and immediately start thrashing upwards. You're not entirely sure what happens to the lizard folk for a moment, and then suddenly he creeps into your vision, looking quite determined to kill this thing. But then you burst upwards to the surface. Kicking heavily, you make it quite easily. Let's see if we can go up as you do so. Wait, there we go. And why can't you go up? You should be able to go up too. Yep, perfect. So you breach the surface, and I will unfreeze it. So now it's behaving properly. You breach the surface without too much of a problem. That's one movement taken.
Okay.
What are you going to try and make it onto the bank itself?
Yeah, I need to get onto the bank to cast the spell.
All right, so you fervently try and scrabble up onto the bank. To your perhaps dismay, these reeds are incredibly thick, and it is going to take you a strength check to be able to pull your way through them and be seen in them. I don't know why I can't see you at the moment, but it's going to take a strength check to kind of force your way through these reeds. I don't know if you've ever been river hopping, but sometimes these things are quite difficult to get through. So let's have your strength check.
18.
You pull yourself through these without a problem. How far onto the bank do you want to go?
Just enough to get a foothold and then
10 feet, 15 feet onto the riverbank?
10's plenty.
10's plenty. All right. The beast, you can see, has now surfaced over here because it was following your basic trail. And you can see that just its head is popping up above the water so that its eyes, these very, 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 very purple eyes, can glare at you. Not sure what its intent is doing. But it seems like it's desperately trying to figure out what's going on.
Okay.
That's its action. The lizard folk has swum to the bank surface and is looking to you for guidance. It will attack, be prepared, he says, as this thing is just eyeballing you from the water's edge. You can hear way off in the distance, "I'm coming, sir," as somewhere down the line Alexei has now realized where you are and is running as fast as he can to catch up and provide you with support. Back to you, though. What are you doing?
All right, time to cast Witch Bolt. Ranged attack roll.
Yeah.
24.
Definitely a hit.
11 points of damage.
11 points of damage. All right, well, we have our map back. I seem to be breaking it tonight. All right, so 11 points of damage to this creature as you fire out this bolt of energy. You notice that you, where you're standing, you're actually standing fairly close to that temple, as a matter of fact, that gave you that power in the first place as you were defeating this thing. I don't know why it's not showing. There we go. 11 points of damage. Your bolt slams into the creature, seems to make it perhaps more angry. You're not entirely sure. Do you move or do you stay where you are?
Stay where I am for now.
Okay. The lizard folk who is in the water with you, well, he's acting last. So this creature now surges forward and bursts onto the bank. Let me just change the status here. He bursts onto the bank and starts slithering directly towards you. He does, however, lose a lot of momentum as his bulk lands, and he's not designed for the water. So as he slams into the bank and starts moving towards you, you realize the bulk of his body is still in the water, and he actually can't find traction on this muddy bank. And as a result, he slides towards you, his mouth opens up, and then he is dragged back slightly by his own weight. Hissing and snarling, and it's that three-pronged mouth opening and closing desperately to try and eat you. The lizard folk is swimming up behind it. You can see he's getting ready. From the bridge further up, just out of view, and I've broken it again, but just out of view, you can see the other lizard folk have gathered on the bridge. They've got various weapons ready to throw, and it's at that point that you realize that the horse is charging up. Kinvar's charging up. Alexi's charging up. He's got a bit of a branch which looks like a club, basically. And back to you. What are you doing?
All right, another witch bolt.
Another witch bolt. There you go.
That one is only a 10.
It bounces onto the water once, onto the water twice, and disappears into the other side of the river. The creature now, you can see the back of its tail is building in power, building, sort of coiling up almost like a snake might, ready for it to launch out of the water and attack you. And we'll be back next week as this battle continues. So there we go. Yes, we had some problems. I don't know. I have a bad... Apparently, I run Dungeon Fog on Chrome. And you shouldn't do it on Chrome. You should do it on something else. But anyway. Brian, thanks for playing tonight. I hope you had fun.
Very good. Very good tonight. Dice were much more in my favor tonight.
Oh, yeah. I hope they remain that way as well, because the battle's not over. But yes, they certainly were. They certainly were in your favor. So thank you for joining us. Brian, do you think you are you excited for the future of this game? Is it, do you think?
Oh, yeah. I think this is building up very well. Yeah. Hopefully the viewers are also enjoying it. Yeah, I like the way the story's growing, especially the feel tonight was great. The brought back memories of the Clash of the Titans movies when I was a kid, and you had the similar view of the statues talking, and especially there's this statue of Zeus talking, and you just see the statue moving and no expression at first.
That's it. No, I'm glad you picked up on that. Yes, those movies definitely very influential, I must admit. Anyway, Brian, thank you so much for playing tonight. We will see you next week, same time, same place. Thank you all for watching and participating. I will be doing a very brief post-game discussion about what I had planned for tonight and what I had not planned for tonight. Some of you might be surprised by the outcome of that. If you want to stay, it does contain spoilers, but if not, we will see you next week. Same time, same place, same channel. Until then, however, I wish you and yours the very happiest of gaming. Goodbye. Okay, so there we go. Why is it on that? Wait, oh, wrong thing. Wrong button, wrong button, wrong button. I'm in the process of reforming all of these scenes that we have. Okay, so, Captain Prices, I really do appreciate your invites to joining the streams afterwards, but it's actually quite late here for some of us who haven't had any real coffee since this morning and are finding it quite unusual. Yes, I have already warned my housemates and my business partner that for the next few days, yes, they might not necessarily get much sympathetic answers from me because of that very nature. So, right, what did I have planned for today? I didn't have planned for Dungeon Fog to fall over. In fairness, though, what I am doing with Dungeon Fog is not what it was necessarily meant to be used for. So it keeps... it's having to do with the caching or something along those lines. Anyway, so it completely falls over. But for today's session, I knew that Inky Design missed the stream, but here for the banana milk. Awesome. I knew that today's session was effectively about the guys... about Brian getting to that city. We've established that he doesn't really do side quests, but that he's pretty much on a straightforward journey. Now, I did notice a change tonight when he actually shifted and said yes, he would help them and their battle, which I think was pretty cool, because it obviously gave us an option to expand and explore, and to see a little bit more of Raj in action. So he's dealing quite a lot of damage. He's done 20 damage at the moment, and he got to see a little bit more about that dagger that the orcs gave him. And I gave the orcish dagger, because it hasn't been established yet what it was and how it works. I thought, well, let's make it a little bit of a powerful weapon. So the biggest challenge that you have when you have a solo game running... Now, Raj can heal himself. We have seen this happen in the past, but it does take up his spell slots or his sorcerer points, or whatever it is that you call them. It does take them up, and so I wanted to try and get rid of that. Or not get rid of it, but I wanted to give the option of that not being necessarily a continuous problem for him as the player and as the character. So let's see, I think T-Cat says, I didn't think Brian was going to take it on. And the next minute he's riding a giant serpent's back. Absolutely. Which is it's one of those things which, once again, you can never predict what your players are going to do. And I think that that's really, 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 really cool. And that's some of the things that I enjoy. So the river map, I knew that they were going to come across two rivers, because if we look at the actual map of Utherios, which I'll bring up for you now, but if we look at that map, there are two rivers that he has to cross. Now, he didn't realize that. He has access to the map. He said, losing all of his maps. He does have access to that map. But when we go down here, you can see that here is where we are. Let me just F11 that. Here is where we are. And he was going to have to cross the Ganamos River one way or another. And then he was going to have to get to the Hytos River, which then flows all the way down to Nexi, which is his ultimate goal. And I think it was great for him to participate. Now, that river and bridge is actually a map that I made for the Dungeon Fog template. So any of you can go and get the template. If you have a subscription to Dungeon Fog, you can open up, create template, and you'll see that there's the actual river template there. And so that I did this morning. I knew he had to cross some rivers, but that wasn't the map that I prepared. The map that I had prepared is actually a barge, which you'll see probably next week, I would imagine, maybe the week after. And the lizard folk were going to attack the barge. And it was going to be a barge river battle type of thing to make the barge journey a little bit more exciting. This bridge crossing, I threw that bridge in quite simply because he needed to cross the Ganamos River. So I thought, well, let's put a bridge in there and let's see what happens. Let's put some lizard folk in there. Usually I had actually expected him to talk his way through it, or to, when they said, oh, you are the Harbinger, And he went, no, 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 I am not the Harbinger. Oh, okay. Well, I thought at that moment, okay, cool, well, then he's off. But then he started responding and actually getting into this thing. And so one of the big problems that exist, and this we learned when we were doing Complete Guide to Nautical Campaigns, is that when you offer your players the opportunity of doing something underwater, breathing is always a problem. And initially I thought, you know what, the lizard folk will have a potion of water breathing. And then I thought, this was during today's session, right? So all of this was made up from the bridge, from the moment he said, I will help you, that was made completely, the rest was just off the fly kind of stuff. I thought, okay, well, he could have potions. They could have potions that they could give to him. But that's a bit dull. That's mundane. What else? So then I looked at the rest of the map, and that temple, it is there. It is on the map. It doesn't have a statue in the middle of it. So for me, this is one of the reasons why I like the Dungeon Fog app in terms of showing maps, is that I could then just go map and statue and drop statue in, and bingo, we've sorted. So I dropped the statue in. They said something about a sacrifice, which, to be perfectly honest with you, was actually an error. It was an error because I realized, and I even had one of the NPCs voice it, well, what are we going to sacrifice? I don't know. The GM just said stuff out loud and suddenly it has to now become true. And I went, well, okay, well, actually just walk in and we'll do the old wisdom trick. So the old wisdom trick, for those of you that don't know, is that you roll sometimes, I do anyway, sometimes you get your players to make rolls and it only succeeds if they fail. So in this case, the gods would only talk to him if he failed his wisdom check. If he had passed his wisdom check, it was just going to be a stone statue, and at the bottom of it would be a small bowl and perhaps some kind of symbol of blood dripping into the bowl and then water washing it clean. I don't know. I mean, it could even have just been add water from the river, drink the water from the bowl, and you'll be able to breathe the river. I mean, it could be something as simple as that if he passed. So he didn't pass, he failed, and I thought, okay, well, who's going to embody this? And now the world, the gods don't exist. It's circles of influence, the blood cult, the logic cult, all those kinds of things. And so I went, well, they've got to be possessed by someone. Raj, give me a religion check. That is a technique that I have used for many, many, many years. And it takes a little bit of training of yourself. Is that you ask the player, make a roll for me. And whilst they are making the roll, that's when you're figuring out what the outcome of that roll will be. And thankfully, he failed his religion check, so he didn't have a clue who they were. If he had, then I would have had to think a little bit faster, but he didn't have a clue. So then I had Alexi come rushing up, and Alexi went, those are the old gods. So who the hell are these old gods? Where did they come from? I don't know, but there's always old gods around, right? I mean, look at planet Earth. We have a whole bunch of old gods. We have a whole bunch of them. Do you want to go and worship Zeus or Poseidon? Or maybe you want to go and worship Bastet or Ner or even earlier. You know, I mean, you go back to the Egyptian gods. So there's always gods hanging around. You can just pull on them and use them. Are these the actual gods that are inhabiting the statue? Alexi could have got it wrong. I did a roll. I mean, the roll doesn't mean anything, but I did a roll anyway. He could have got it wrong, and it actually isn't the old gods. It's some kind of, being or deity or dryad or something like that, if the player pursues it and wants to know more. Of course, I don't think that is something that's going to come up, but that's definitely something that we needed. So tonight's game was a little bit plagued by the Dungeon Fog collapsing, which is why I kind of had to pause every now and again. But yes, otherwise it worked out quite well. The serpent in the trench, again, the map has that cave. So this is an example where if you are using maps, and I use the maps because Brian is in Hong Kong and we're playing online and there's nothing along those lines. So I use the maps because it's easier. And then also they inspire you. So on that particular map, which I can't show at the moment because Dungeon Fog is refusing to work on my computer, but on the map, there is that cave that the snake thing came out of. There's another cave that's got treasure and a dead dwarf on a throne, or not even a dwarf, just a dead skeleton on a throne that's behind a stone door. So there's lots of different little things, and I purposefully do that when I'm creating maps. As I create, it's like, well, there's an area here. It could be grassy, or maybe there's a temple. It's a riverbank, but they could also be something else. So when you make the map, if you make the map to help you, then you can't really go wrong. Like the statue, those gods, that is one of the new statues that came out in the Dungeon Fog pack. I don't actually know what the hell it means. This man being held by a woman and he's holding a sword. The statue's called the Lovers. I don't know. Anyway, I looked at it and took inspiration from it and went, well, that's what that is. It's a husband and wife and she's a bit nasty. I don't know. Oh, yes, I do remember. So I don't know if any of you picked up, but they were quite nasty people, quite condescending, slave owners to the last, treated the Zash as a subservient race. And yeah, it's where did that come from? Why was I expressing that? Again, it was at this point where it's like, well, maybe I need to set up that Raj is actually going to liberate the lizard folk from their enslavement on the bridge. Maybe. And so maybe instead of him attacking the creature underwater, which is potentially very, very dangerous, he just destroys the statues and frees the lizard folk from their duty of guarding a bridge in the middle of nowhere. So what I was trying to set up was I was just giving the player as many options as they could possibly get out of the situation. So he goes, whoa, no, this is way too much. This is above my pay grade. I'm not going to try and kill the creature. Because he hasn't killed creatures before. Maybe he would liberate the lizard folk from guarding the bridge. I don't know. So I made the gods nasty people, but they gave him what he wanted because ultimately it serves their purpose, right? So that's how that came about in my head. Whether it makes sense or not, I don't know. But he didn't seem to complain about it. So there are a few things. Grizzle says, do you need names for these old gods? Well, Grizzles, I've got Discord open where you threw in a whole bunch of names. And I've basically been working through them. So I really appreciate you contributing names for me to use in the stream. To be absolutely honest with you, it saves me from having to come up with names. And it's a lot of fun. So we have the name of the sea creature, the Yung Jar. We have the name of the lizard folk, the Zash, Kinvar. They all have come from your list, I think. So there you go. Keep adding to it, and anyone else is welcome to join and add more names to that list, without a doubt. So there we go. Captain Prices says the eel is magically or physically controlling the statue. So if the eel die, the gods die, and so they're liberated. So this is something that I also had to learn, was that not everything has to be connected. Now, I know that we want to try and do that. But play the scenario out. He kills this creature, because he is going to kill it next round, right? He might take some damage. He's got quite a lot of hit points, I think. So, but he might take some damage. He's going to kill this creature eventually. The lizard folk are then going to thank him and give him some kind of reward, which we'll make up when we need to. The gods aren't going to care unless he goes back to them and says, I have killed this creature, now you must reward me. In which case, then the gods might very well give him a token, something, the sword. And yes, I'm sure it's a sword. They might give him a sword so he can hopefully give it to Alexis. I'm not sure. It's an interesting one. Just a water breathing potion. I mean, it could be ironic. Anyway, so if he does topple them, then the lizard folk are free. I don't think that the serpent needs to have been connected in any way to the statues. It's not a bad idea, don't get me wrong, it's not a bad idea. But because this is a side quest, this is really just a side quest. And it's actually quite funny that it's played out, because I think it's next week is a video that people asked for, which is how to pad out your adventures, so how to extend them. And this is a classic example of that. It is a little side quest, and once he's done, he'll get a little amount of reward. Is it enough for him to level up to level 3? I'm not convinced. I think by the time he gets to Nexi, the city, then certainly he can level up. But yes, so there we go. Welton S. Lima says, I saw the table for creating quests, but I don't understand the questions that were asked. What, how, where? And the last one about promises. So can you explain, is the map public? I think the map is not public, although I could be wrong. It might very well be. I will have to double check. Uther's Dragons is what the world is called on World Anvil. World Anvil's got this great map display and pinning system. But in terms of creating the quests, so promises is what promises have you made to the player? So in today's adventure, for example, if I had actually planned this out, I would go to that little block and say the statues of the old gods have promised a reward to Raj if he protects their bridge. The lizard folk, the Zash, have promised a reward to... It's stuff that you have to remember that is in there. So Kinvar at the moment is a horse that doesn't have a huge amount of stuff to do at the moment, except for make a few snide and snarky remarks. But in the future, he may very well ask something of Raj. The same with Alexei. So yeah, it's an interesting one. What happened to the Orc Lady's sword, Inky Design? Well, that's the dagger that he was using. And the way that I've set it up now, and he doesn't know this yet, but you guys will. I want him to use it because it will restore healing. So whenever he hits a living creature with it, he has to make a Constitution saving throw. If he passes, he gets half the damage back to himself as a heal, a healing spell. If he fails, he adds to the damage by half, but from his own hit points. It's a nasty old sort of weapon. But again, if you cannot slay your enemy and be strong enough to enjoy the spoils of war, then you shouldn't be slaying your enemy. That's the kind of the orc kind of weapon that I think would happen. It's like you pour your soul into killing this creature, and if you die, so be it. Let's see. Good side quest when it reminds the player of Clash of the Titans. Yeah, look, I mean, the original Clash of the Titans, the Harryhausen stop animation stuff was absolutely brilliant. I loved that. And the remake as well, to be perfectly honest with you. I like both of those films. Hamlin. Was it Hamlin? I thought... Yeah, Harry Hamlin. No, was it Hamlin? I thought it was Harryhausen. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Those original films are great. They're very, very dated because of the techniques that they were using back then, but they were amazing for that. I never thought about doing reverse rolls like that wisdom. Surely often there's consequences to failed rolls, but to have a target to have a failed roll to get the wanted outcome, my mind is expanded. I'm glad you say that, Johnny DLG or Yolny DLG. It is something that I do often to try and break players out of assuming that just because they passed or failed a roll, they have got information that is wrong. So that often happens, especially with players who've been playing for a long time. They go, oh, I failed my wisdom check, so that means bad stuff's going to happen to me and everything's going to be a lie and I don't believe anything. So when I get those kind of players, and I'm not saying Brian is one of those players, it's just that I do this for everybody now, is when I get those kind of players, I specifically do these opposite rolls where failure is actually a success. Because there's nothing in the rules that say I can't do that. Do the heals go to temporary hit points? No. So the heals do not go into temporary hit points if he's at max. They simply are lost. It's otherwise it could lead to abuse of the magical item. I'm just looking. Please remember to put the word question in bold before you have that. Blacksmith says, do you have any suggestions for books from feudal Japan of DM? I'm creating a session with my friends, and do you have any other tips? Well, we're not particularly answering DM questions tonight. We're talking more about tonight's campaign and the behind the scenes part of that. But I would suggest checking out, well, how accurate do you want to be? Because something that I realized that when I lived in Japan was that the stuff that we call Japanese is actually better described as Asian with a Japanese influence, because we tend to clump together Chinese, Korean, principally those three big cultures together and call them Japanese more than anything else. But yes, in terms of books, if you're running D&D, they did do Oriental Campaigns, or what was it called? Oriental Campaigns, something along those lines. And that was actually pretty good in terms of giving you an overview and an understanding of how that whole thing sits. I'm trying to think now. Otherwise, Legend of the Five Rings, of course, is set in that semi-magical space. Legend of the Five Rings would be something to look at. All right, folks. So next week we've got the finishing off of this battle, and then we've got the floating down to the River Nexi. With the floating down the River of Nexi, now that we've had this big snake battle, I don't think I'm now going to run that battle tomorrow, next week. I don't think I'm going to do that next week. I think it'll just be dialogue and conversation, and then we can get into Nexi, because I don't want to leave it for too long, to be honest with you. The balloon frogs were a fun flavouring moment. They reminded me of my first film of Shrek. Well, I think that's probably where the idea came from, although at the time my brain wasn't thinking Shrek. My brain was thinking, okay, how the hell do we send out a message? There's no flares, you could bleed. No, hang on a moment. These are lizard folk. They'd probably have something to mark the bridge with, so balloon bladders, boxfish. But probably, yes, the balloon from Shrek. I think it was a balloon, wasn't it? That he turned that thing into. So there you are. The last question is from Varanazarix. And the question is it hard to find a good breakpoint mid-combat? And do you break mid-combat often? So I usually, if I'm playing a regular game, I won't break mid-combat. Because it's difficult to kind of get back into the swing of things, no pun intended, to get back into the initiative, to start remembering who was doing what. And players have got combos and things that they like to build up that really get disrupted by stopping mid-combat. So usually I will stop just before combat, or as the creature drops, I will then end combat. I only do it in these live streams where I drop mid-combat because, well, usually we're running to a fixed time frame, and usually because it does leave us with a bit of tension, and we can always go back and watch the episode again and see exactly where we left off just before we start the actual show. So there is that advantage. So I think, a lot of people when they're watching live streams and things, and people say, oh, well, what's the difference between a live stream and a tabletop game or a non-streamed game? Let's put it that way. And I think a lot of it comes down to quite literally showmanship and cliffhangers. So in my normal games, I do have cliffhangers. I do try and end on a cliffhanger. I want my players to come back. But it won't be a combat cliff. It'll be timed, and I will allow myself more time to get to a more natural cliffhanger than try to force a cliffhanger in there. Yes, so if you didn't hear, if you don't know, this Friday I start my Patreon game. I've got some Patreons lined up. We've got characters created for Star Wars. I've been watching Star Wars, so I've got a hankering for that. And so we're going to start that game. We're going to play a simple adventure, he said. Ha, ha, ha. I was working it out this afternoon. And hopefully we'll make that available to you. One of the things that we were hoping for was that perhaps we'll do it as a premiere and we'll have all of the players and myself in that premiere to talk about what was going through our heads at that time. I would love to do that, actually, but in a completely honest platform. So, and I know it sounds weird, but we all like to say, oh, I really like what you did there, and oh, that was nice. And then we don't mention the part, well, you were absolutely thick there. That was so stupid. I had to hide my eye rolling from you, but I couldn't, because watch the video. Look at my face. Do you see that? That is the face of someone who's just gone, oh my God, you are thick. I would love to do a real review of how it works out. I'm hoping we're going to have a lot of fun. It certainly seems that way. But who knows? So that starts on Fridays. It's not live streamed. It is played off screen, and then we'll release it later on if we think there's value. Anyway, until next week. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being part of this, and yeah, we'll see you either on tomorrow for my game where I'm just a player. A lot of fun. That's Mercs of Mischief. That's at 8 a.m. GMT. So Mercs of Mischief. Lots of fun. Chaos. Absolute chaos. Then on Sunday for live sessions with the GM. So until then, I wish you and yours the very happiest of gaming.